Hello and welcome back to my game dev series. So I'm just gonna start a quick timer here, see if I can kind of keep on track today. Now I think I'm just gonna jump right in, and in this video we can start looking at my inventory system UI. So the first thing that I would like to do, I think, is hack in, just for testing purposes, some items for my player so we can scroll through those when we actually get a UI built up. I think the best way to do that right off the bat is to, here in my player module, just added them in manually. So those are going to be of types, how did we implement that? So doors, enemy player, some inventory, and those take an item. So item T, item 1, item 1 dot. So we have these attributes to work with. For some reason, and I don't know why, but when I close VS Code and I open it up again, sometimes my IntelliSense is a little bit off. I mean, I ultimately understand that it's because I'm not including certain namespaces, or not namespaces, but certain headers and stuff at the top of this file. That's because they get trickled down from elsewhere, because basically my CPP files all get included into the main CPP file. So it's basically, what do you call it, a Unity build or some such. That might be the going term. But that just means that my IntelliSense in here is a little bit off. But eventually it seems to pick up on things and get a little bit more intelligent, but it doesn't seem to have kind of done that yet at this point. So we'll just call this item sparkly ball, I don't know. Value is going to be 30, count is 1. Tile position, again, we don't have that yet. Quest item is false. And I guess at this point we should do player inventory. Not insert, but oh boy, what is that term? In place. That's what we want. So again, for items, I think we just take the name. So why don't I do that instead? And then item 1 goes in as the value. So let's just add, say, I don't know, 4 items to begin with. That's 2, 3, 4. What else would you have in a fantasy game? Flint, I guess, maybe? I don't know. Gotta start fire somehow, don't you? So I just want to change that. And item 4 will be sword. we'll go with that. Hopefully that'll build just fine. If I can't do a simple task like that, maybe I should give up at programming. Hopefully this whole channel doesn't make it seem like I should give up at programming, but I do wonder sometimes. Okay, so we have items in our inventory. I think that I have my debug display off, so let me just turn that on quick. I do think I want to remove that pretty quick here. I don't really like how it's working out. I think I'd prefer just to overlay debug info just on top of the game screen instead of having this whole separate area for it. But well, it doesn't seem to be showing my inventory quite as I would have expected. I'm not sure why that is. So item 1 is in place. Item 2 is in place. Oh, right. Kind of helps if I change those two, doesn't it? So item 3 will get in placed correctly. And then item 4. There we go. Yep, I should just give up. No, the more you do it, of course, the better you get at it, the less time you really have to invest thinking about the basics. So here we see that my 4 items are in my inventory. So I'm just going to comment that stuff out once more, and we will get on with building things. So really what I want to happen in the first place is we need to set up some type of key command so that we can trigger the inventory to show up in the first place, or some kind of player menu, I guess, would be a good starting point. And you can do more than just look at your inventory in that, I would assume, like being able to quit the game, or I don't know if we'll have saving. I mean, I might like to build some rudimentary idea of that in the future. But that being said, we do just need a key command to pop up our menu in the first place. So, at risk of being simplistic, I think our key can be, let's see, what am I doing with F? That is fire. So why don't we just do M as menu? And I know in some games I could be map, but I'm not making some games, I'm making my own. So that's SDL key M. And in this case, we just want to capture the key down. I am in the key up state right now. That's not quite what we want. So here's our key down. And put this back in. And I don't think we actually need to trigger a state. We actually need to trigger, I guess, what's going to be a component or a different namespace, or submodule, I suppose you could say in this case, that again handles its own state, because that's basically going to be capturing our input, and it's going to be pausing the game and that kind of thing. So like we do with our console, we will invert the paused boolean. So pause is false by default. This will set it to true. And then we'll do menu start, I guess is kind of the way we did things with the console. So I do not have that menu subsystem yet. So I'm going to have to make that right now. I'll do a menu cpp and a menu.h. And we'll do our pragma once. Set our namespace to menu. I don't know if you need a semicolon at the end of that. I think I've been doing that anyway. Maybe I haven't. And then namespace menu in here as well. Alright. And then, of course, I need to make a start function. So we'll just log some output, make sure that's actually going to function how we want. And then, like I said, I do a Unity build of sorts, if that's what it's called. And so I'm going to have to add our menu file in here. So include menu.cpp, and then in boreal.h, I've been adding headers in here, although maybe I'll keep on with that idea. I think that'll be fine. Because that is a primary engine/gameplay module at this point, and so we will need that. And boreal.h does get included, I believe, in our engine here. Or not. It gets included somewhere. I don't remember where. Right here in main. So that'll only get included once, and that's working fine for me at this point. So let's build this. Menu 3. Namespace menu. It's not support default int, missing semicolon. I can't even write a header file. So we do have a pragma once. We have namespace, name space. I swear I'm not dyslexic, but it could fool me sometimes. So that should be good. Now if we run that, we hit M, we get menu start. And so that'll pause the game, that wipes out rendering to black. And if we hit M again, that toggles it back to normal gameplay. So that's perfect as a start. Now really what's going to happen in our start function, I think we can essentially look at our console here and kind of see what that one is doing. So for that one, we're setting a buffer. Basically showing is kind of the main type of variable that we'll want to have for that. That's just a Boolean. So why don't we copy state as well, since we will need to pass state into this module. So that's not the right place. So add those at the top. And again, start was showing equals true. Now we'll also need an init function, and I can basically just copy that out of our console module here, because basically every module does kind of the same thing with that. It's just setting an internal state variable. So we'll do that. Shuffle things around here. Add that to our header. And then we do need to call this init function in our engine initialization. So alphabetically, that'll be here. And that, like I said, just passes in this state. So menu showing will be true now. And then we'll need a render function. I don't believe we'll need to pass anything into that. So we can pop that in our header as well. And the render is going to get called in our engine as well. So that will be in here. So if not paused, we do this stuff. If paused, so we'd be outside of this main loop, we can just put in a new if statement. So if menu showing, menu render. Now one more thing we can do, probably more than one. So I don't know if we'll need any update stuff yet. If we do, we can look at that later. So yes, one more thing we can do here is in our handle key events, to handle key down, I mean, I guess we're dropping into this function ultimately, but I don't think we want to do that. So realistically, no, I think to begin with we need to do that so the menu is actually showing, and then once it's showing, we'll still be handling key down presses in here, or in here in our key events, but we'll want to shuffle those key presses off to our new menu module. So what we can do is add yet one more condition, else if menu showing and we'll get a menu handle key down, and we'll pass in the event key for that. So again, that's going to be one more that we can somewhat clone out of our console here. Let's kind of copy it up to that point. So handle key down, we'll start with that. We can remove some of this. I'll change this to M, and if you push the M key again, that will set showing to false. Right, and if you hit space, So I think that's what that is. Space is generally our action key in this game up to this point, so we'll keep it like that. And we don't need a default case, at least at this point. So that should be good. Of course, we need to add this to our header, as per the usual. And just to make sure our render is happening correctly, let's put like a rectangle or something on the screen. So we'll give it a width of tile size, height of tile size, x equals, hell, we'll just set them all to tile size. And then is it SDL render fill rect, I think. And that's a reference. I'll actually put in a render present this time. I think we'll need to change the color as well. So is there a red? I don't recall. So we have alpha red. Yeah, we just have a plain red as well. So we'll call that and see how that goes. Showing is not a member of menu. I believe it is, but okay. Menu showing. That probably needs to be in the header. I believe if I look at my console header, showing is an extern, right? So that's fine. So extern bool showing. That does not need an initialization right there. So showing is not blah blah blah. Color is red, does not take 0 arguments. I'm sure you need to pass render into that. So let me do that. Of course, I need to pass it into render present as well. Okay, so menu, we do have something showing up like I want it to. I can't really do anything else. I can't open up my console. If I hit M again, it made the menu, I guess, per se, disappear, but we are not unpausing the game, so I need to do that as well. So that's going to be state paused equals. I mean, I can just set it to false. I don't really need to do that inversion thing, but I just have for whatever reason. So that's better. Now, one thought I had was, if I pop up a menu, do I really want to obscure the rest of the playing window? Like, maybe I could have something pop up over the side Though at that point, I would need to disable my directional keys. Game clock would keep ticking, which is fine. So it would stay in this render loop. But I think just to begin with, we can keep it kind of blowing away the whole thing. Maybe that'll keep the UI a little bit more succinct. And then if I'm, say, in a shop and I'm dialoguing with someone, or I'm going to sell to them, you can maybe have some alternate graphics up. So you'd have the menu on the side with your items that you can, look through, decide what you want to sell, and then you can have like a shopkeeper graphic up there or something, or just have some other piece of UI there. So maybe their items can be on one side and yours can be on the other side, and you can kind of swap between them and have a total amount of, gain or loss gold at the bottom, and kind of a list of what you bought or something. I don't know, kind of making this up as I go. But for right now, at least we have the beginnings of an inventory. So we'll run with that. Let's see. So we do have a rectangle displaying. And I think what I'd like to do first now is... Actually, I didn't test hitting the action key while I'm in my menu, so let's do that quick. Right, so my action key does work. And now that I'm thinking about it, just for the sake of stubbing things out, I am going to need up, down, left, and right. So let me copy those quick. Up, down, left, right. And we can take out this cruft for right now. I will not need to handle those yet, but we will have to be able to page through items. So we'll set it to that for right now. I think what I was saying before about having kind of like one side be the list of items and the other side reserved for something else, I think I'll go with that. So what I think I can do is this will be the item pane. Well, I guess I don't even need a comment for that if I name my variable correctly. So we'll call it that. I won't want it to be red ultimately, but just for right now so we can see it, so it stands out a little bit, I think we can keep it as such. Now the size I'm going to have to think about. So the width, if we want to do, say, half the screen width, there's a couple places in-game where I'm like centering text and whatnot, so I'm getting the full width of the screen and then I'm subtracting the length of the text. I think it's about time that I finally make a utility function to get the width of the screen easily. So that's just going to return a simple integer. So we'll call that, I don't know if I want to call it screen width per se, that's a little bit ambiguous. Window width might make more sense. And we should not have to pass anything into that because we already have all the state variables and stuff that we need. But I can essentially derive this from some of the constants that I have. So if I look at those, we have tile size and we have window tiles. So basically I just have to multiply those. And one of the reasons that I'd like to make a function for this right now is because that calculation could viably become more difficult in time. There's my timer. Let me reset that just so we get to an hour and can pause if I get to that point. Like I was saying, we could potentially have a more complex calculation than that in the future, right? But for right now, we can just multiply those. Because if you recall in the past, we did have scaling, right? And then I had to account for that. So that was, times scaling. And I don't know what else we could use in the future for that. I mean, if I ever end up doing full screen stuff, that will probably have some type of different calculation, or who knows. I'm not trying to prematurely optimize, but I think cleaning some things up at this juncture might be a good idea. So in our menu, we can leverage that, and yeah, so we are returning integer. Window width. Now we want to divide that by 2, right? So we can chop it in half. But what I also want to do is put a little space on either side. So maybe like, half the width of a tile maybe on each side. So I'm just going to subtract tile size, because then we could have a bit of spacing on either side of it. So if we had a second pane, which I can put in beside this one once I'm done here, hopefully that will give me what I'm looking for. So our height, I guess we can do, our height is really the same size as our width right now, but I'm going to make a convenience function for right now that just passes back the same thing as window width, just so I can use that where I want it. And like I was saying before, in the event that we want to kind of mess about with that in the future, we can. I think that's good. And then for X and Y, we want to do tile size divided by 2. So that's going to move it away from the top and the side by half a tile. So let's see what this gives us. Now we should have a pane that fills up the left side of the screen, minus a little bit of padding all the way around the edge, which we do. So that's perfect. And I think I'll put in one on this side just for reference. We won't really use it right now, but we'll just call it extra. I guess we need to render that one as well. Now the only difference on that one is going to be the X position, right? So for that we want to get the window width, and then we want to subtract, let's see, that's not going to be correct. We want to get the window width divided by 2. And then we want to add tile size divided by 2, right? So we can move that over just a little bit more. Now let's build that and make sure I didn't completely fudge that. Okay, there we go. And so we do have about 1 tile in between those 2 panes. Now I'm just going to keep this one commented out for right now, but for future reference, if we want to use it, we'll have that. So good. Now, I think at this point we can basically begin rendering some text on top of this. Actually, let me change it to a less disgusting color. Let's just make it some kind of alpha gray. Let's see. Alpha gray. And what should my alpha be? Maybe like... oh, I don't know. I don't know what 50 will give us, but we'll try that. Not a damn thing, that's what it gives us. Well, that's not going to work because we're doing an alpha black on top of black, so you're just going to get black. So no, we don't want that. We want gray light. If my white was alpha, that I could probably do. So alpha white. We'll change to that and see how that goes. Alpha white. There should be a kind of minimal amount of white, right? Because the highest alpha can be 255, so we're going to be more at the low end. That should be kind of a darker gray. Nope, that is not true. Ouch, okay. That's because we need blend mode to be set, which it is not. So alpha gray does have a blend mode as well. There we go. I think I'm good with that. So let's see. For our menu, I guess what we want is items, and then beyond that, maybe we can look at stats. So that's kind of like those end game stats that I show up, or that I show at the end on the death screen. And then we'll just have quit, so you can end the game. I think that will do. So we'll start with those, and then if you go into items, you get kind of the list of player items. And what I'm thinking with those right now is, if I'm in game and I go down to, say, items, and I click into that, or hit my keyboard key and go into that menu, you can up and down key between all the items, and it might show like maybe a picture of it. So in this right pane, we can show a picture of it and the name, the value, whether or not it's a quest item, and then I know we had not really looked at adding those stats to items yet, but that's potentially something that could be in there as well. So that was in types. So those battle stats that I had left commented out before. So that's health, defense, speed, and luck. And of course, those would be how the item influences the player or the enemy, depending on what it is. So if it's a defensive item, obviously that kind of stilts enemy attack. If it's a weapon, then I don't really have a feature for that or a statistic for that, do I? Maybe speed, I don't know. But that's, I think, where I want to aim overall with that. So, okay. I think for right now, I'm going to cap off this video at this point. And in the next one, we can look at actually generating that menu stuff and then interacting with it. So thank you for watching, and hopefully you'll stick around to the next video.